Hey everyone, my name's Nicole and I am a Klamath tribal member, and I'm here to share a little bit about my journey to becoming a teacher. I live mostly in Eugene, Oregon, and sometimes I spend time in Chiloquin, Oregon too. Probably about a quarter of my time I spend there. So this first slide is just kind of an overview of how I'm going to organize this 5-minute presentation. And so I'm going to share how I was my own worst enemy and biggest critic and how that was a barrier, how education is the key to healing our communities, and how I always have a vision, mission, and goals to get to where I'm going. So if you take a look at this slide, I call this I'm my own worst enemy slide. So this far left column, those are actually all the schools I attended as a undergraduate. And it took me 8 years to get a 4-year degree. And I started out at Southern Oregon University and I wound up finishing online through Eastern Oregon University. Um, and the biggest barrier was myself. The biggest barrier was self-doubt. I didn't think I could do it. Math, I placed into math 10, which is basically adding and subtracting. And I had to get a tutor from math like 90 all the way up through finishing all of my college math. And I didn't really have a vision either. And so I showed up to college fresh, out of high school, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? I didn't have a vision. I was like, I'm just going to go to classes, I guess. I don't know. Um, and I couldn't pass Spanish. So I had to get a bachelor's of science instead of bachelor's of art. So I wound up at Haskell. I was like 23 years old and I wound up at Haskell and I finally felt at home. I'm like, wow, I'm with my own people and we all have the same goals and we want to return home and work for our people. And it was so motivating and inspiring to be there. But I got in a car wreck with my best friend and she passed away. And I think, a lot of you in this Zoom room your stories are probably grounded in trauma. We experience a lot of death and tragedy in our communities. And I think that we'll find that that's it woven into a lot of our stories. And so after that happened, I, I've always been taught that it's our duty to walk for people who can't walk for themselves. And she always had a vision for making the community better for our youth. And so I was like, all right, I better get my act together and finish college. And at the same time, I also got pregnant with my daughter. She's 15 now. And she's my Haskell Rascal. So I moved home and stopped messing around and graduated with my bachelor's. And I'll talk about work here in a second. I decided I wanted to become a teacher. I really love working with kids. And so I applied to the U of O Sapsik'gsmåwá program and I got accepted and I finished a 2-year program in 1 year. Like I said, I had a mission and a vision. I knew I'm working with kids. That's what I want to do. So I was like, bam, and finished college real fast. Now, today, I'm a 3rd-year doctoral student at the University of Oregon in the Special Education and Clinical Sciences Department. I'm also a Next Gen scholar, so that means that I have a grant for my tuition. So I'm not really paying for college. I just have to do a college forgiveness. And I should be graduating next summer in 2022. At the same time of doing this program, I'm also doing an administrator licensure program, which means if I wanted to, I could be a principal or a vice principal. So when I moved home from Haskell, I was going to college full time and working full time in our tribal housing department. And I didn't like that very much. And so my dad, who taught at Chiloquin forever, he's like, hey, we have an educational assistant job. You should just apply for it. So I applied for it and I went in the classroom and started working with kids. I was like, this is so awesome. Like kids are so much better than working with adults. I just love this. And I also was really upset because the quality of education wasn't that good. I didn't feel like our kids, our tribal youth were getting treated really well. And I kind of got upset. And that's where I shaped my whole vision. Like, wow, I'm going to work with kids. So like I said, I went back and got my bachelor's. And a couple days after I got my bachelor's, I became a substitute teacher in Chiloquin and just started kind of filling in wherever teachers needed me. And usually it was in the special ed room. And I really enjoyed working in there. But I noticed that the majority of kids in there were Native kids. They were, my family and maybe some of your family watching this. And I'm like, this just doesn't seem right. Something's wrong here. So that's when I applied to the U of O and got my master's. Right when I graduated my master's, I traveled up to Muckleshoot, a tribe up by Seattle, and I worked for them for 2 years as a behavior specialist. And so I just help kids that had some behavioral needs. Once a job came open in Chiloquin, we moved back home and I worked at the high school in the resource room. And what that means is kids who are on IEPs, if they have behavioral needs, if they have academic needs, whatever the needs they have, we just come together and meet them in the resource room. And after a few years there, I got recruited to go to the elementary school to fix some systems and iron out some kinks in the special ed program. And after working at Chiloquin Elementary, I just got kind of burnt out because not because of the kids or anything like that, but because our kids, equity is not present in most of our communities when it comes to education. And I just was kind of fed up and upset. And I'm like, okay, I need to take the next step in my career because our kids deserve the best and they're not getting that. So that's when I applied for this doctoral program, and that's why I'm here. A couple other jobs I've had are TOSAs, which that means you're teacher on special assignment. So you're not necessarily in the class working with kids, but you're still in the building helping out somehow. So I usually help teachers. Right now, I'm also an intern at the Oregon Department of Indian Education. Wait a minute, the Oregon Department of Education, Office of Indian Education. I'm a student intern there. So I just want to share my teaching philosophy with you because it's something that we should all keep in the back of our heads and just keep reshaping. And I keep a document on my computer and I update it whenever I can. And so my biggest thing is I think that education is the key to healing our communities. And I don't just mean going to formal education, but I mean learning about our history and our language and our culture and unlearning things like white supremacy and the bad things that happen in our community. And I think that when we collectively learn about those things, we're going to see a lot of healing. And we already are seeing a lot of healing. And I always like to position myself as a learner. And so I don't walk into a classroom thinking I know it all. Kids, I don't care if they're 2 or they're 22, they teach me just as much as I teach them. And another part of my teaching philosophy is mutual respect. And I don't walk into a classroom just demanding respect. I walk in knowing that we have to earn it from each other, and respect's a two-way street. And then, like I said, if you're 2 or 22, I'm going to respect you. And I'm really happy to be with you in a classroom. And the last part that I added as I've gotten older is that if I'm not in balance, if I'm not living my life in balance, then I can't be an effective educator. The very last piece I just want to share with you is that I always have a vision, mission, and goals. So when I went to my bachelor's program, I had none of these things. And I was just basically running around blindfolded. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was wasting a lot of money. So this is something that I just shaped throughout the years. And I keep a document on my desktop with this, and I just update it as I need. So right now, my vision is I would love to see our schools as a gatekeeper for healing our generational trauma. My mission is to fiercely advocate for educational equity and educational sovereignty for our tribal communities. And my current big goal is to graduate from the U of O by next August. I also have little goals, and I'll talk about that in a couple of weeks because I have another video in a couple of weeks. But anyways, thanks for listening. Thank you for your time. I'm really proud of all of you. I wish I could meet all of you, and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.